The galaxy had known peace for so long that even the idea of war felt like a story told to frighten children. Star systems that once burned with conflict now floated quietly in their orbits, bound together by the Therian Alliance, a vast union of alien civilizations that had brought stability to the stars. Among those who served the Alliance was Commander Lyra Valen, a woman of discipline and curiosity. She was a skilled officer of the Therian Navy, known for her calm judgment and her hunger for discovery. Her silver eyes often lingered on the stars longer than most, as if searching for something hidden behind their cold beauty. Since childhood, Lyra had loved reading about ancient warriors, especially humans. The archive spoke of them as a passionate and daring species, capable of both great kindness and fierce bravery. They were said to have fought until the very end in battles that changed the fate of galaxies, but no one had seen a human in over 300 years. Many historians claimed humanity had destroyed itself. Others believed they had simply faded away, unable to survive the new age of peace. To most, they were only myths now, legends whispered in military academies to inspire courage. But to Lyra, the humans were more than legends. She felt something in their stories, a spark, a restlessness that echoed inside her heart. On the bridge of her ship, the Celestial Wing, Lyra studied the stars before her. The ship glided silently through the void, its hull reflecting the faint blue light of a nearby nebula. Her crew moved quietly, performing routine checks. It was supposed to be a simple patrol mission along the edge of unexplored territory. "Commander," said Ensign Kale, a young officer with soft green skin and curious eyes, "we're picking up an irregular signal ahead. It's faint, but unusual." Lyra turned from the viewport. "Define unusual." Kale adjusted his console. "It's an energy signature. Not Therian, not any known species. It's old. The pattern doesn't match anything in our database." Lyra walked closer, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. "How old?" Kale hesitated. "At least 3 centuries, maybe more. But it's still active." That caught her attention. A 300-year-old signal still running in the far edge of the galaxy? That was impossible. "Location?" she asked. "Uncharted planet, 3rd from the star in the Archon system," Kale replied. "It's small, atmosphere still breathable, but the readings suggest heavy radiation pockets." Lyra's second officer, Lieutenant Rowe, frowned. "Commander, we should log the anomaly and move on. The Alliance declared the Archon system off-limits after the old wars. No one's been there since." Lyra's gaze didn't move from the star map. Something about the signal pulled at her curiosity. "No one's been there," she repeated softly. "That makes it worth a look." Rowe looked uncertain. "With respect, Commander, it could be a trap or a malfunction from ancient tech." "Perhaps," Lyra said, straightening. "But if that signal has survived this long, it deserves to be understood." She turned toward the helm. "Set a course for the Archon system." The crew exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. The Celestial Wing turned gracefully, engines glowing as it accelerated into the dark. Hours passed in silence as the ship neared its destination. The planet soon came into view. A dull gray sphere covered in storm clouds and the faint shimmer of broken satellites orbiting in ruin. The sight filled the crew with quiet awe. Kale whispered, "Looks dead." Lyra studied the readings on her wrist console. Dead worlds don't send active signals, they entered orbit. The old satellites tried to ping the Celestial Wing, but their transmissions were weak, ancient, like whispers of ghosts trying to speak. "Can you pinpoint the source?" Lyra asked. "Affirmative," Kyle replied. "The signal's coming from a surface installation and coordinates locked. It's military in design." That word was military but made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Prepare a landing team." The shuttle descended through thick clouds, lightning flashing in the distance. The planet's atmosphere was heavy with dust, and the ground below was littered with wreckage. Old starships, shattered towers, and rusting metal skeletons that stretched toward the sky like broken fingers. As the shuttle touched down near the ruins, Lyra stepped out first, her uniform's translation badge glowing softly in the dim light. The air was cold but breathable. A quiet wind moved across the dead city. "Stay close," she ordered. "Keep your scanners on full." Her team moved carefully, their boots crunching against the debris. Ancient banners fluttered weakly on fallen walls, their symbols faded. Lyra brushed her fingers across one. Beneath layers of dust, she saw a faint blue insignia, a stylized globe with wings on each side. Kyle noticed her expression. "Commander, what is it?" Lyra stared at the symbol. "It's human," she said quietly. "Earth Defense Fleet." The others froze. "But humans are extinct," Kale whispered. "That's what everyone says," Lyra replied. "And yet here we are, standing in one of their bases." Deeper inside the ruins, the walls still hummed faintly with power. Lights flickered weakly in corridors buried under dust. It was as if the place had been waiting for centuries, sleeping but not dead. Suddenly, Lyra's wrist console beeped. "I'm getting a life reading," she said, surprised. "Very faint. About 200 meters ahead. Life? That can't be," Rose said nervously. Lyra looked determined. "Move." They followed the signal through a corridor that opened into a massive underground chamber. In the center stood a tall metal pod connected to humming cables and glowing panels. The light from the pod was dim but steady. "Commander," Kyle said, scanning the device. "This is old cryo technology, human design, and it's still active." Lyra approached the pod carefully. Her reflection shimmered on its frosted surface. Through the ice she could see a shadow, like a figure inside. "A person?" she breathed. Kyle nodded, astonished. "Yes, and alive." Lyra's heart pounded. She had spent her life reading about humans, studying their courage and their mysteries, but she had never imagined she would meet one. She placed her hand on the pod's surface. "Can we wake him?" Kale hesitated. "Commander, the systems are unstable. If we interfere, we could—" Lyra looked at him firmly. "Do it carefully." Kyle nodded and started working. The pod's lights brightened. Steam hissed as the chamber filled with cold mist. The glass door slowly lifted open, releasing a wave of freezing air. The figure inside stirred. He was tall, with dark hair streaked with gray, wearing a tattered uniform with a human insignia on the chest. His eyes opened slowly, tired but sharp. He looked at them with disbelief, then focused on Lyra. His voice was hoarse. "You're not supposed to be here." Lyra froze. The sound of his voice was human, not deep, real, alive. "You're human," she said softly. He stared at her for a long moment before replying. "Then you know why you should leave." The room fell silent. The only sound was the low hum of the ancient machines. Lyra tried to speak, but words escaped her. This was something beyond science or history. The man stepped out of the pod, unsteady but strong. His uniform was damaged, but his presence carried weight, the kind of quiet power that only true soldiers had. He looked around the chamber with sadness. "How long?" he asked. 300 years, Lyra answered quietly. "The humans disappeared." The man gave a tired smile. "Not disappeared," he said. "We waited." Lyra's mind raced. "Waited for what?" He looked toward the ceiling where cracks of sunlight pierced the dust. "For the day someone would need us again." Lyra felt the weight of his words. Something deep inside her, a spark of the same courage she had always admired in humans, began to stir. The galaxy had forgotten the warriors of Earth. But as she stood before the last of them, breathing, real and unbroken, Lyra realized a truth that would change everything. Humans were not gone. They were waiting to rise once more. The chamber was silent after the man spoke. The sound of his voice still echoed in Lyra's mind. He looked real, not a hologram, not a recording, but a living human being standing before her. He studied his surroundings carefully, his eyes sharp and alert despite the centuries he had slept. The faint hum of the old machines filled the air, mixing with the soft hiss of escaping steam. Lyra stepped closer. "Who are you?" The man looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Captain Elias Trent, Earth Defense Fleet, and you are—" "Commander Lyra Valen of the Therian Navy," she said, her voice steady but full of curiosity. Elias nodded slowly, as if testing the name on his tongue. "Therian. That's new. So the Alliance survived." Lyra frowned. "You know about the Alliance?" He smiled faintly. "I was there when it was born. The humans helped build it." Lyra's eyes widened. "You mean you were alive during the founding of the Therian Alliance?" Elias looked away, his expression thoughtful. "Alive, yes, but not for long after that." The team stood silently, unsure how to react. Kale whispered to Ro, "He can't be telling the truth. That was centuries ago." Elias turned his head slightly, his hearing sharp. "It was," he said calmly. I went into stasis at the end of the human exodus. The war was over, or at least we thought it was. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. You've been asleep all this time? He nodded, waiting for a signal that never came. Lyra wanted to ask more, but she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The cryo chamber had drained his strength. We should get you to our ship. You need medical attention. Elias shook his head. No hospitals, no scans. I'll be fine. You've been frozen for 300 years, Lyra insisted. You're lucky to be alive. I'm not lucky, he said quietly. Just unfinished, the words unsettled her. Still, she knew she couldn't leave him here. Fine, she said. But you're coming with us. There are too many radiation zones on this planet. It's not safe. Elias didn't argue. He looked around the chamber one last time, his gaze softening as he saw the old Earth flag hanging from the wall, faded, but still standing. He reached out and touched the cloth gently. We thought we'd see the stars again, he murmured. Seems they forgot about us. Lyra didn't know what to say. The sadness in his voice was heavy, almost ancient. She signaled to her team. Let's move. The group exited the ruins and headed toward the shuttle. The wind had picked up, sweeping dust across the broken ground. As they walked, Elias stayed a few steps behind, scanning the horizon as if expecting something to appear. Kale glanced at him nervously. Commander, how can a human still be alive after all this time? Lyra whispered, I don't know, but we're going to find out. When they reached the shuttle, Elias hesitated before stepping in. His hand brushed against the metal hull, feeling the smooth, modern surface. Your ship design, different from ours, sleeker, quieter. Lyra smiled faintly. Centuries of peace will do that. We build ships for exploration now, not war. Elias gave a small laugh. Peace, he said softly. You really believe it lasts? Lyra turned toward him. It's lasted longer than war ever did. He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes said he wasn't convinced. Inside the celestial wing, the crew moved quickly to analyze their strange guest. Medical drones scanned him, but the results were confusing. His biology was human, but his body had almost no signs of age. Kale stared at the readings. His cells are stable. There's no damage from stasis. It's like he went to sleep yesterday. Elias sat quietly in the corner observing the room. His eyes moved across the panels and glowing controls, studying everything. You've come far, he said softly. Technology, organization, peace. You've done what we couldn't. Lyra stood across from him. What happened to your people, Captain? Where did the humans go? Elias sighed. We didn't vanish. We chose to leave, she frowned. Leave? Why? He leaned back, looking up at the ceiling. Because humanity understood something the others didn't. Peace built on fear doesn't last. The alliance was fragile. Too many species, too many interests. We knew a time would come when someone would test it again, so we withdrew, went silent. We hid our fleets and our colonies. We became myths. Lyra tried to process his words. You hid on purpose? For centuries. Yes, he said simply. We wanted the galaxy to forget us, to stop fearing us. Humans had fought too many wars. We needed the galaxy to believe we were gone so others could grow without fear. Lyra looked both amazed and confused. And yet you stayed behind. He smiled faintly. Someone had to keep the lights on. For a moment, silence filled the room. Lyra studied him carefully. There was no arrogance in his tone, no pride. Only quiet certainty. Your people must have been brave, she said softly. To give up everything and disappear. Elias shook his head. Bravery isn't the same as wisdom. We made mistakes too. We thought we could control peace by leaving. But peace isn't something you hide from. It's something you fight to protect. Lyra's gaze softened. You still believe that even after all this time? He looked at her directly. Always. A faint alarm interrupted the conversation. Kale turned to his console. Commander, there's something strange. We're picking up energy fluctuations in the upper atmosphere. Lyra frowned. Could it be from the storm? Kale shook his head. No, Commander. It's not weather. It's a ship. Large and unidentified. Elias's posture changed instantly. The calmness vanished from his eyes, replaced by focus. How large? Kyle's voice trembled. Bigger than ours? I'm detecting multiple heat signatures, weapons online. Lyra turned to Ro. Raise shields. Get us airborne. The celestial wing shuddered as it lifted off the surface, breaking through the thick clouds. Above them, the sky flashed with streaks of silver. A massive, dark vessel emerged, its hull covered in strange markings. Rowe muttered, "That's not Therian design." Elias stepped forward. "No, it's older." "Older?" Lyra asked, eyes narrowing. "You recognize it?" He nodded slowly. "We called them the Dravik. They were predators, scavengers of dying worlds. We thought they were extinct." Lyra looked at the giant ship on the screen. "They don't look extinct to me." The alien vessel opened fire. Blue beams of energy tore through the clouds, striking the planet below. Explosions rippled across the ground where the old human base had been. Lyra gritted her teeth. "Evasive maneuvers. Return fire!" The celestial wing dodged the blast and fired back, but the enemy's shields absorbed the hits easily. The ship trembled under the impact of another beam. Kale shouted, "Shields at 70%. Elias turned to Lyra. "You're not equipped for this kind of fight. Their weapons are based on phase resonance. Your shields won't hold. Then what do you suggest?" She demanded. He looked at the planet below. That base had more than a cryo chamber. "There's a buried hangar under the mountain. If we can reach it, we might have a chance." Lyra hesitated. "A chance to do what?" He met her eyes. "To wake what humanity left behind." The enemy ship fired again, grazing their hull. The lights flickered. Lyra didn't have time to think. "Helm, take us back down," she ordered. "Full descent. Kale, guide us to that hangar." Elias watched as the ship plunged through the storm once more. Despite the chaos, he looked almost calm, like someone returning to a place he had always known he'd see again. When they reached the coordinates, the scanners detected an enormous underground structure, buried under layers of stone and dust. "That's it," Elias said firmly. "Land here." The celestial wing touched down on uneven ground. The landing ramp opened and the wind howled through the valley. Lyra looked at him. "You really think something down there can help us?" Elias's eyes gleamed with quiet confidence. "I don't think, Commander." "I know." They moved quickly toward a metal gate half buried in rock. Elias placed his hand on a control pad, long, rusted, and dead. To everyone's surprise, the light turned green. The ground shook as the ancient doors began to open, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. Kyle whispered in awe. "It's still operational." Elias smiled faintly. "Human engineering, built to last." As the doors opened fully, Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. Inside, faint lights flickered, lines of massive machines and silent ships resting in the darkness. Elias stepped inside, his voice steady. "Welcome to the last fortress of Earth." The underground hangar was vast beyond imagination. Its ceiling disappeared into darkness and massive shadows of dormant ships stretched across the polished metal floor. The air smelled faintly of oil and old machinery. Lights flickered along the walls, powered by an emergency generator that had survived centuries. Lyra stepped cautiously, her boots echoing against the metal. Kyle followed close behind, scanning every corner. The Therian officers had seen many advanced technologies in their time, but nothing compared to this. Ships with sleek, angular designs rested in silence. Some were fighters, small and fast. Others were larger, built for long-range combat. Panels displayed unreadable data, their language human, but the symbols conveyed power and precision. Elias Trent walked confidently between the ships, his hand brushing against the hull of each one as if greeting old friends. "We built these to last," he said quietly. "We didn't know if the galaxy would ever need them again, but we left them ready." Lyra watched him carefully. "Your people truly expected war to return?" He nodded. "Peace is fragile. We hoped the alliance would hold, but we could never be sure. That is why we waited and why we hid these ships." Kyle looked up at one massive fighter. "They're enormous. How many of these could you have deployed?" Elias smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and sorrow. "More than anyone imagined. Enough to defend worlds, enough to change the course of battles. But we chose not to use them. For centuries we let the galaxy think humanity was gone." Lyra's mind raced. "And yet here you are, the last human alive. Why didn't you leave sooner?" He looked at her with steady eyes. "Because someone had to awaken them when the time came. And that time is now." A low rumble shook the hangar, making the lights flicker. Kale jumped. "Commander, energy readings from the surface. Multiple ships entering orbit. Alien vessels." Lyra turned toward the display screen. Dark shapes moved against the stars, immense and menacing. She felt her stomach tighten. "Evasive maneuvers." Elias stepped beside her, calm as ever. No, we don't evade them. We fight, Lyra blinked. Fight? Our ship alone can't match those numbers. He nodded. Then we awaken more. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? He gestured toward the row of massive hangar doors. Every ship here has been in stasis. Every fighter, every gunship, every defense system. If we activate them, humans will rise again. Lyra looked at him, a mixture of awe and fear. But they've been inactive for centuries. Can they even function? He smiled faintly. I built them to last. I knew a day would come when they would be needed. Elias moved to the first fighter, a ship called the Vanguard. Its hull gleamed even in the dim light. He placed his hand on the cockpit canopy, pressing a small, worn emblem. Lights flickered along the ship, and with a hiss the canopy opened. This ship, he said, his voice quiet but firm, was my command when the Exodus began. It is old, but it can still fly. Lyra stepped closer. Captain, you can't go alone. The enemy will overwhelm you. He looked at her with a steady gaze. I am not alone. Humanity's legacy is here. And you are witness to it. That is enough for now, Kale whispered. Commander, he's going to fight them, alone. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She felt a surge of something she had only read about in history books. Awe, fear, and hope all at once. Elias climbed into the cockpit, strapping himself in with practiced precision. The Vanguard hummed to life, its engines glowing with blue light. Lyra watched as centuries of human engineering roared awake with a sound that resonated deep in her chest. Above ground, the alien ships advanced. They moved silently but with purpose, their weapons already scanning for targets. Their energy pulses struck the planet's surface, sending clouds of dust and fire into the sky. Lyra's ship attempted to intercept, but her shields struggled against the sheer power of the invaders. Elias's voice came through comms, calm but commanding. Commander Valen, he said, do not engage directly. We will draw them in. Lead them here, toward the hangar. Her hands clenched the console. Are you certain? Yes, he replied simply. The ships in the hangar are humanity's gift to the galaxy. They are ready, just like I am. As the alien fleet approached, Elias lifted the Vanguard into orbit. The ship moved with astonishing speed, dodging enemy fire and striking with precision. Every maneuver was instinctive, a combination of skill and experience centuries in the making. Lyra's team watched in disbelief as the Vanguard tore through the alien vessels, its small size allowing it to move where larger ships could not. Blue streaks of energy followed its path as it targeted weak points in the enemy hull. Kale whispered, I can't believe what I'm seeing. One ship against all of them? Elias's voice came calmly through comms again. One human is never truly alone. Lyra felt a chill. The phrase carried more meaning than she could yet understand. She realized this was not just a battle. It was a lesson, a reminder of what humans were capable of even after centuries of absence. The Vanguard led the aliens toward the mountains. Elias used the terrain to his advantage, weaving between peaks and valleys. Each strike was precise, each movement calculated. The aliens adapted quickly, but he adapted faster. Inside the hangar, Lyra moved to activate the defense systems. Panels hummed to life, revealing dormant turrets and energy shields. These are automated, Kyle said. They'll target the invaders, Lyra nodded. Then let's wake the rest. She tapped into the hangar's systems. One by one, smaller fighters began to rise from their stasis pods, engines glowing faintly. Lights lit the hangar as systems long silent roared back to life. Elias's voice came again. Good. The fight has begun. The alien fleet was now caught in a trap. As they pursued the Vanguard, automated human defenses struck from multiple angles. Turrets fired with precision impossible for ordinary operators. Fighters launched from the hangar, joining Elias in the skies above. Lyra watched, her heart pounding. This is incredible, she whispered. They've been gone for centuries. And yet? Yes, Elias replied over comms. We never left, we waited. And now the galaxy remembers. The aliens tried to regroup, but human tactics were unmatched. The Vanguard darted through gaps, striking vulnerable points while automated systems targeted their flanks. The enemy ships had power, but they lacked strategy. And strategy was humanity's greatest weapon. Hours passed as the battle raged. The hangar shuddered under the power of the weapons, and the celestial wing remained in orbit, coordinating support. Lyra realized something profound. Humans were not just fighters. They were leaders, tacticians, and symbols of hope. Elias emerged from one combat sequence, exhausted but unbroken. He transmitted a simple message. The humans have returned. Remember this. Lyra felt a mixture of pride and awe. She had read about human courage in old texts, but seeing it alive, watching it breathe and fight was unlike anything she had imagined. The alien fleet began to retreat, battered and confused. The remaining ships fled into the depths of space, leaving the planet scarred but alive. When the battle finally ended, silence returned. The hangar was filled with the soft hum of human ships powering down, engines cooling after centuries of inactivity. Elias stepped out of the Vanguard, his uniform scorched and torn but his spirit intact. Lyra approached him cautiously. You did it. You fought them off. He looked at her, calm and steady. No, we did it. Humanity always fights best when the galaxy needs it most. One man alone cannot win a war. But one man can remind everyone why humans fight. Lyra nodded slowly, understanding. This was not just survival. It was a message. Humans were back and their fire could never truly be extinguished. Elias looked toward the stars. We waited centuries, but the time has come. The galaxy will remember us now, and when darkness returns, humanity will rise again. Lyra stood silently, the weight of his words settling in her mind. For the first time in her life, she felt that legends could be real, and that the courage of one human could inspire hope across worlds. The skies above the old planet turned red as the alien fleet descended. Their ships were dark, shaped like claws moving slowly through the clouds. Each one carried strange energy that shimmered like liquid fire. The ground shook as their weapons charged, and a deep hum echoed through the ruins. Commander Lyra Valen stood beside Captain Elias Trent, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She had seen many battles before, but nothing like this. The power of those ships felt unnatural, older than any technology known to the galaxy. Her team aboard the Celestial Wing was calling her again and again through her communicator, asking for orders, for hope, for anything. But for the first time in her life, Lyra did not know what to say. Elias looked calm, almost too calm. His cracked helmet hung from his belt and his eyes were fixed on the storm above. They found us, he said quietly. I was afraid this day would come. Lyra turned toward him. Who are they? What do they want? Elias sighed. They're called the Vrax Dominion. Ancient machines created for war. They don't seek to rule. They only consume energy, matter, and life. His words chilled her. Machines? You mean they're not alive? They were made to destroy enemies of the old human empire, Elias said slowly. When the humans disappeared, the Vrax had no masters left. They drifted through space, asleep, until someone or something woke them up again. The air trembled as a red beam shot from the clouds, striking the ground not far from them. The explosion sent dust and wind rushing through the ruins. Lyra covered her face, coughing. We can't fight that, she said. We don't even have the firepower. Elias looked at her, his face calm but eyes burning with something fierce. Something human. We can, but not with what you have now. Follow me. They moved quickly through the underground tunnels beneath the ancient city. Lyra followed Elias through corridors lit by dim blue lines that seemed to wake as they passed. The walls were covered in symbols she didn't understand. Old human designs worn by time but still powerful. Elias stopped before a large sealed door. He placed his hand on a scanner that glowed faintly. Access code Vanguard Alpha. The door trembled, then opened slowly, releasing a rush of cold air. Inside was a massive chamber filled with shadows and silence. But as Lyra stepped in, lights began to flicker on, one after another, revealing what was hidden beneath the dust. Dozens of human fighters rested inside. Sleek and silver, their wings folded like sleeping birds. Each one was marked with a red insignia, the old Earth symbol, faded but still visible. Lyra's mouth fell open. You kept them all this time. Elias nodded. We hid them, waiting for the day the galaxy would need us again. He walked toward one of the ships. Its hull was scarred but strong. He placed his hand on it like greeting an old friend. This is the Vanguard, one of the last human fighters built before we disappeared. You can't fly that, Lyra said. It's too old. It must be centuries out of date. Elias gave a small smile. Old, yes, but human-made. That means it still fights harder than anything out there. He climbed into the cockpit and powered it up. The engine roared to life, a deep thunder that filled the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling as energy surged through the hangar. The ship's lights glowed bright white, Lyra stepped back in awe. She had never seen anything so alive. "Elias," she called over the noise. "What are you going to do?" He looked at her through the glass canopy. "What humans always do," he said. "We fight back." As the hangar doors opened, sunlight flooded in. The Vanguard lifted off the ground, its thrusters burning blue. Lyra watched as it rose into the sky, leaving behind trails of light. The alien fleet moved in formation, their dark ships spreading like wings of a predator. But Elias moved faster. He shot straight into the center of the swarm, his fighter twisting and turning with impossible precision. The first enemy ship fired a plasma beam. Elias dodged and responded with twin missiles that struck the ship's weak point. It exploded in a flash of white light. Lyra's crew on the Celestial Wing watched from orbit, their screens filled with data and disbelief. "Is that a human fighter?" one officer asked. Lyra's voice came through the comm. "Yes, and he's buying us time. Prepare the main cannons. We fight alongside him." Her crew moved quickly, inspired by the sight. For the first time, fear turned into courage. The legend of human fighters wasn't just history, it was real, alive before their eyes. In the air, Elias pushed the Vanguard beyond its limits. He fought with instinct, like his body remembered what the galaxy had forgotten. He weaved through fire, dodged enemy blasts, and struck with surgical precision. But the Vrak ships adapted. They learned from every attack, adjusting their shields, changing patterns. Elias frowned. "Clever machines," he muttered. "But humans don't fight by pattern." He pulled a sudden dive, flying dangerously close to the ground, drawing several Vrak ships after him. At the last moment, he activated a hidden system, the Vanguard's cloaking module. The fighter vanished from radar and the enemy crashed into each other, exploding in a chain of light. Above the chaos, the Celestial Wing fired its main cannon, guided by Lyra's command. The beam struck the largest Vrak ship, breaking through its defenses. "Target down!" shouted her weapons officer. Lyra gripped the console. "Keep firing. Don't stop." Her voice carried power, inspired by Elias's courage. For the first time, Therians fought with human fire in their hearts. The battle raged for hours. Elias destroyed ship after ship, his fighter moving like lightning among the stars. But every victory came at a cost. The Vanguard systems were burning out. Its shields flickered and alarms blared inside the cockpit. He opened a channel to Lyra. "Commander, your fleet must retreat to orbit. I'll hold them here." "No," she said firmly. "You won't fight alone." "Not anymore." Elias smiled faintly. "You sound like a human now." He cut the channel before she could answer and turned his fighter toward the biggest enemy ship, the command vessel. It was enormous, with spinning metal rings and a pulsing red core at its center. Elias knew what he had to do. In the Celestial Wing, Lyra realized what he intended. "No," she whispered. "Elias, don't do it." But the Vanguard was already racing toward the enemy flagship. It glowed brighter as its engines overloaded. The human pilot's voice came through one last time. "Tell them, Lyra, humanity never left. We only waited." Then the Vanguard struck the enemy core. A blinding explosion filled the sky, spreading across the battlefield. Every Vrak ship froze, their systems shutting down at once. One by one they fell from the sky, crashing into the planet's surface like dying stars. Lyra shielded her eyes as light turned to silence. When she looked again, the horizon was clear. The battle was over. Hours later, the Celestial Wing landed near the ruins. Lyra walked across the scorched ground where the explosion had occurred. There was no sign of the Vanguard, only a single piece of metal buried in the soil glowing faintly. It was the insignia of Earth. She picked it up and held it close. "He believed." "And now I do too," she whispered. Above her, the sky was calm again. The war machines were gone and the world felt alive. Humanity had returned, not in numbers but in spirit. The legend was true. The fighter had stood before her and reminded the stars what courage meant. The silence after the battle was almost unbearable. The sky, once ablaze with fire and energy, had turned a soft blue. Broken ships and debris floated across the horizon, remnants of the alien fleet that had threatened the planet. Lyra Valen stood at the edge of the landing platform, staring at the remains of the battlefield. Her heart still raced. She had witnessed something extraordinary, the return of humanity's courage in a single fighter, piloted by a man who had slept for centuries. Elias Trent had not only fought the impossible, but had reminded everyone that legends could be real. "Commander Valen," Kyle said softly, coming to her side. "The systems in the hangar, they're all online now. Every fighter, every weapon, fully functional." Lyra turned to look at the vast underground complex. The hangar, once a silent tomb for human technology, now glowed with life. Fighters hummed quietly, engines ready to awaken. Turrets lined the walls, their targeting systems calibrated and precise. Every machine was waiting, prepared for the next battle. Elias had shown them what humans could do, but this was more than that. It was a promise. Lyra led the team back into the hangar. "We need to organize the fleet," she said. "If the aliens return, we have to be ready." Elias stepped out of the shadows, leaning against one of the massive fighters. His uniform was scorched and torn, but he walked with steady confidence. "They may return," he said. "And when they do, humans will not run." Lyra studied him. "Captain Trent, after centuries, you still believe humanity can make a difference?" He nodded. "Not just humanity, everyone. Courage is not about numbers. It's about will, strategy, and the willingness to act when it matters most. Humans once led the galaxy because we understood that, and we will again if necessary." Kyle shook his head in awe. "I can't believe it. You've been gone for centuries, and now you're saying we can fight again?" Elias smiled faintly. "We always could. We only waited for the right moment." As they prepared the fleet, Lyra realized how much hope had returned with the human technology. The fighters were fast, agile, and powerful. The turrets could strike with precision unimaginable to most alien races. The hangar itself was a fortress, hidden beneath centuries of stone and dust. Lyra walked past the ships, touching their hulls. "It's incredible," she whispered. "All this, and they were forgotten." Elias stepped beside her. "Forgotten, yes, but not gone. The galaxy needed to remember what humans were capable of. You have seen it now, Commander." And so has everyone else. Her mind raced. The Therian Navy had fought many battles before, but none like this. None that tested courage and strategy against such overwhelming odds. "Then we must prepare," she said. "If the Vrax or any other threat returns, we'll fight alongside you." Elias nodded approvingly. "Good. Because the return of the fighters is only the beginning." Suddenly, a communication signal lit up the control panel. It was from nearby star systems, ships requesting assistance, worlds under threat from unknown invaders. Reports flooded in from planets that had relied on the Therian Alliance for centuries. They spoke of alien raiders, strange energy weapons, and colonies on the brink of destruction. Lyra read the messages in disbelief. It's not just the Vrax. They've been scattered across the galaxy, attacking quietly. Many worlds don't even know help exists anymore. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's why we exist, Commander. Not to hide, not to remain myths, but to protect, to fight. To remind the galaxy that courage lives even when hope seems gone." Lyra felt a surge of determination. She had spent her life patrolling peaceful sectors, feeling the emptiness of a galaxy without human fighters. But now she understood. Humanity's fire was not in numbers alone. It was in the heart, in the strategy, and in the courage to stand against impossible odds. The hangar doors opened once more, revealing the sky streaked with clouds. Lyra watched as the newly awakened human fighters rose into orbit, their engines glowing like stars. Each ship carried a symbol of hope, humanity's mark on the galaxy, shining despite the centuries of absence. "Commander," Kale said, "we have enough firepower now to defend multiple systems at once. If the Vrax return, they won't stand a chance." Lyra nodded. She felt a strange pride not just in the ships, but in what they represented. Courage, sacrifice, legacy. Elias climbed into another fighter, this one sleek and smaller than the Vanguard, but just as deadly. "I'll lead a sortie," he said. "The others will follow. Let's remind the galaxy that humanity fights to protect, not to destroy." "Then we fight together," Lyra said, her voice strong. "You lead and we'll stand with you." The first engagement came sooner than expected. Alien ships appeared above the horizon, smaller than the previous fleet but faster and more numerous. They fired without warning, their weapons tearing through the clouds. Lyra's heart pounded as the fighters responded. The humans moved as one, fast, precise, and deadly. The turrets on the ground joined the battle, striking with perfect accuracy. Elias led the charge, darting between enemy fire, taking down ship after ship with a combination of missiles and energy pulses. The other human pilots followed his lead, coordinating without communication, guided by instinct and strategy. From the celestial wing, Lyra directed support, guiding Allied ships into the fight. The galaxy watched in awe as humans, long thought gone, returned to the stars not as myths but as protectors. Hours passed in a blur of motion and light. The alien ships, relentless at first, began to falter under the human assault. They adapted slowly, but humans fought faster, smarter, and harder than any machine could predict. Lyra watched Elias's fighter as he moved like a shadow across the battlefield, striking and vanishing in moments. Every ship he destroyed was a message: humanity was back and it would not yield. Kale whispered, "It's unbelievable. One pilot, one fleet. They're changing the entire battle." Elias's voice came through the comms, calm but commanding. "Not one, many, all of you. This is what humans do when they remember who they are." Lyra smiled. The truth of his words rang louder than any weapon. Courage, skill, and determination. Those were humanity's weapons, stronger than shields or cannons. As the final enemy ships attempted retreat, Elias activated a series of energy pulses from the vanguard. The blasts disabled their engines, forcing the invaders to crash or surrender. The remaining alien vessels fled into deep space, leaving the skies above the planet clear. Lyra breathed deeply, the tension of hours melting away. "It's over," she whispered. For now. Elias landed beside her, climbing from the cockpit. His face was tired but calm. He looked at the fleet of human fighters rising above them, a gleaming testament to their return. "They fought well," he said, "but this isn't just about victory. It's about reminding the galaxy of something important." "What's that?" Lyra asked. "That humans never left," Elias said. "We were forgotten. We were myths. But we never stopped watching, never stopped waiting, and when the time came, we rose again." Lyra nodded, understanding fully now. "They will remember," she said softly. "Everyone will remember." Days later, the aftermath was clear. The planet was scarred, but life continued. Nearby colonies sent messages of thanks, pledging to work together to ensure the galaxy remained safe. The Therian Navy and Allied forces had witnessed the return of human courage and strength. Inspired by something they thought had vanished, Lyra stood on the landing platform of the celestial wing, watching the human fighters patrol the skies. Their engines glowed against the morning light. She felt something she had never felt before, a certainty that the galaxy was safer now, not because humans had numbers or power, but because they carried hope. Kyle approached her quietly. "Commander." "What now?" Lyra smiled, watching the horizon. "Now we make sure they are never forgotten again. We fight, we protect, and we teach others what it means to be courageous. Humans may have been gone, but their spirit, that is eternal." Elias walked beside her, his expression calm but resolute. "And if darkness returns?" Lyra looked at him, her voice steady and proud. "Then humanity will rise, and I will stand with them." The sun rose over the planet, casting golden light across the hangar and the fleet above. The galaxy had remembered. The legend was no longer a story. Humanity had returned, not as myths, not as echoes, but as fighters of courage and hope. And somewhere in the stars, the universe felt safer because one human had stood before them, showing that bravery never dies,